Hello to all CINEMASTER lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. Part 2 of the series. The Institute begins with Luke, who is sleeping in his bed when he suddenly has a vision of the future, seeing Harry killing Greta. He wakes up terrified and rushes to their room, where Harry has just come out of the test, feeling very exhausted from the serum injected into his body. When Greta tries to comfort him, he gets angry and hits her on the head with a hammer. She falls to the ground, and then the guards arrive, restrain Harry, and take Greta with them, hoping to save her. Luke feels he has exposed himself, revealing that he has become clairvoyant and can see future events before they happen. He is afraid they will move him to the back section before he can execute his escape plan. At that moment, Tony comes to him and takes him to the test room, where they conduct a new experiment on him, a sensory test. They put him inside a glass box and Daniel asks what he's thinking about. Luke replies that he doesn't know and insists his supernatural power is only telekinesis. Tony gets angry and starts sucking the air out of the box. Luke feels he can't breathe. His nose starts bleeding, and he keeps banging on the glass for them to let him out, but no one cares. They keep torturing him until he passes out. Afterwards, Maureen takes him back to his room. Avery takes advantage of Maureen being close and reads her thoughts. He then tells Luke that he managed to see the hospital room. We see the hospital room, where a group of children are wearing scary-looking helmets and are brain dead. We learn that the Institute exploits their supernatural powers to generate energy to run the Institute and its devices. Those who die completely are thrown by Maureen into the incinerator to get rid of them, and they disappear forever without anyone hearing about them. After a while, Luke goes to Julia, who suspects he has developed his mental abilities but is hiding it and doesn't want to tell them anything. She opens a news article on her device, and Luke uses his abilities to read it. He is shocked to learn that the article is about the death of his parents, and that Michelle killed them while kidnapping Luke from the house. Luke gets angry, grabs Julia, and starts hitting her. The guards rush in to save her, and she grabs an electric baton to shock Luke, but Trevor stops her, telling her they have a more important problem. He takes her to see Tim on the surveillance cameras. At that time, Tim arrives at the Institute and tells the guard he got lost on his way to the forest. He keeps asking about the Institute and what happens inside. The guard insists it is an infectious disease lab and asks him to leave and return the way he came. Julia asks Trevor to get rid of Tim before he investigates and exposes them, but he refuses and promises to interrogate him himself to determine if he is a threat. Later, Julia holds a graduation party for Nikki to transfer him to the back section. Nikki takes advantage of the moment, fights with the guards, steals an electric baton from one of them, breaks the lock of the AC room, and then quietly leaves with the guards. Luke realizes he did this to help them with the escape plan. Luke tells Avery that it's their turn to continue the plan. He then talks to Maureen, telling her he needs the elevator passcode and someone to remove the monitoring device from his ear. He reminds her of her son Jacob, which makes her break down in tears. She leaves him and walks away. Tim is with Wendy and learns from her that Sloane's daughter died near the Institute. They suspected for a while that Annie was right and that the Institute was responsible for the children's deaths, but they couldn't prove anything. Tim decides to uncover the Institute's secret himself. Back to Luke, he gets the passcode and scissors from Maureen and thanks her for helping him escape. Maureen is afraid someone will discover what she did and kill her, but Luke reassures her. They agree to meet at the Red Stairs after he escapes from the Institute. A little later, Avery fights with George, so the guard comes to separate them. Avery enters the AC room and sabotages it to change the temperature and disable the surveillance cameras. Tim returns to the hotel and finds Trevor waiting for him, who says he came to talk because of Tim's visit to the Institute. Trevor says that over the past 15 years, many people have suspected the Institute of doing dangerous things to children, but they decided to handle these people themselves. He gives Tim his card and tells him to contact him if he wants to know the truth. Back at the Institute, Nikki enters the film room, where Tony explains that Earth will be their guide, and this is the last thing she will do before they erase her memory and send her home. They put the helmet on Earth's head and ask the other children to close their eyes. Earth enters the mind of a doctor in Russia and finds herself in the house of a Russian army commander who has a knee problem. Earth controls the doctor's mind and injects the commander with a poisonous substance in his leg, killing him instantly. Earth collapses, her body convulses, and she succeeds in the assassination mission. We learn that the Institute uses these children to carry out assassinations of important people around the world, leaving no trace of the crime. Earth is then taken to the hospital room after becoming brain dead, and they put the helmet on her, like the other children. At this moment, Luke decides to execute his escape plan. He takes the scissors, removes the monitoring device from his ear, and hides it under his pillow so no one discovers he escaped. He makes sure all the cameras are disabled and asks Avery to communicate with him telepathically to monitor the path and tell him where to go. He says goodbye to Avery before escaping from the Institute. He starts moving through the building. Whenever he gets close to a guard, Avery warns him at the last moment before the guard sees him. On the way, Julia leaves the storeroom and is about to see Luke and ruin his plan, but Daniel calls her to ask about something, so Luke hides quickly until she leaves, then continues to the laundry room. Maureen comes to him, hides him in her laundry cart, and moves him to the back section of the institute. She meets Tony on the way, who wants to take a towel from the cart, but she stops him, afraid he will see Luke, and continues until she reaches the hospital room. Luke gets out of the cart, and Maureen gives him a flash drive containing everything about the institute. She asks him to wait at the red stairs until she finishes her work and comes to him. Luke sees Iris wearing the helmet, so he tries to wake her up, but he realizes there's no hope. He sees the incinerator and finds out that Julia was lying to him, and that they kill the children after finishing the experiments. So Luke decides to expose them to the world and let everyone know about the institute's crimes. He finally manages to get out to the garden, starts digging in the ground with the scissors, and slips under the rusty fence without anyone seeing him. But the scissors fall from his hand in the garden as he's escaping, but he doesn't care and keeps running into the forest to reach the stairs and wait for Maureen there. At that time, he reaches the edge of the forest and tries to get to the red stairs to find out what happened to Zoe, the girl who drowned with her friends in 2008. Meanwhile, Julia is in the air conditioning room and suspects something is wrong because someone has sabotaged the air conditioning to disable the surveillance cameras at night. She asks the guards to make sure all the children are in their places. We go back to Luke, who reaches a lake near the red stairs and notices guards from the institute at the lake. He goes underwater, holds his breath, and swims until he reaches the other side of the shore to escape the guards. He finally reaches the red stairs and finds Zoe's cabin, but notices that someone has destroyed the cabin as if they wanted to erase Zoe's memory and cover up any evidence of how she died. He calls Wendy and tells her everything. She tells him to come back and bring her car, promising to help him expose the truth as he wants, but he has to return to her now because she's going to work soon. At the same time, Maureen is on her way out of the institute, but the guard stops her and tells her Julia wants to see her in the air conditioning room. Miriam becomes very scared, feels her end is near, and that she will never leave the building alive. She goes back to Julia's office, enters without anyone seeing her, and sees Julia on the surveillance cameras in the air conditioning room. Maureen calls a journalist and tells her that she helped the boy escape from the institute so he could tell his story to the world and expose the institute and its crimes. She asks her to help him and meet him at the red stairs as they agreed because she won't be able to leave the institute again. It turns out this journalist is actually Kate, but Maureen doesn't know her true identity. An hour later, Luke is still in the forest and is shocked when he sees Tim in front of him. He thinks Tim is one of the institute's guards until Tim assures him he's a police officer and promises to help him and do what he wants. But first he needs medical attention because his ears are bleeding. Luke doesn't care and wants to reach the red stairs as quickly as possible to meet Maureen. Tim calms him down, gives him his jacket to keep warm, and asks him to tell him what's going on calmly. Luke says there's no time and that Trevor is looking for him to take him back to the institute. As soon as Tim hears Trevor's name, he gets very nervous and realizes the institute is hiding a big secret, so he decides to help Luke until he finds out the truth. Meanwhile, Julia returns to her office and is shocked to find Maureen has committed suicide. Trevor tells her that Maureen tried to betray the institute and leak information to Kate, thinking she was a journalist. Julia's suspicions grow and she asks the security guards to check the children's rooms to make sure all the kids are in their places. She goes herself to Luke's room to make sure he's there. When she gets to Luke's room, she can't find him anywhere and is shocked to see the surveillance device under the pillow. She realizes Luke tricked them to escape the institute, so she sounds the alarm and declares a state of emergency in the institute. She decides to go on a field trip with Trevor to search for Luke because his being outside is a danger to all of them. Back in the forest, Luke tells Tim everything, and Tim is shocked and can't believe there are children with real superpowers. He searches for Luke's name online and discovers a news article about his kidnapping and his parents' death on the same day, so he believes he's not lying. He calls his boss, John, and tells him he needs his help and will bring Luke to the police station to handle things. He asks Luke to read his thoughts to make sure he's not lying. Luke says he can read thoughts, but he can't tell if what someone is thinking is true or false. If they believe it, it will appear true. Suddenly, they hear a noise by the lake. Tim goes to check and is shocked to see Kate in front of him. She lies to him, saying she came to meet Maureen for a news scoop. Luke appears and tells her Maureen is dead and that he has all the information she needs. Kate pulls out her gun and tells them to raise their hands and is forced to admit she works with Trevor. Luke uses his mental power to drop a tree branch on Kate, and Tim pushes her so she falls, hits her head, and dies, falling into the water. Tim and Luke escape to reach the police station quickly before Kate's backup arrives and arrests them. A little later, Julia arrives at the forest, and we learn she has activated jamming devices to cut off phone and internet networks for the whole city. She tells her assistants to comb the forest for Luke and find him, or else they'll all die and the institute will disappear forever. Tim and Luke reach the police station, where they meet Chief John and one of the detectives. The detective leaves and calls Julia, telling her he'll watch Luke until she sends backup. Trevor goes to Daniel and tells him he has decided to betray Julia and will inform the boss about Luke's escape, but only if Daniel joins the call and confirms everything he says. Daniel agrees, afraid, and we learn he loves Julia, but was scared Daniel would kill him, so he had to help. Inside the station, Luke tells John his story. John is shocked, confused, and can't believe anything Luke says. Luke gives him the flash drive and asks him to watch it to see for himself, even though he doesn't know its contents, but is sure Maureen recorded everything to expose the Institute. John agrees, plays the flash drive, and sees Maureen in the video saying the Institute is a terrorist organization exploiting children, that she hates the place, and decided to expose their secret to the world. She turns on her phone camera and films everything in the Institute, explaining that the Institute moves children to the back section to exploit their mental abilities and make them carry out various assassinations around the world. Since these operations drain the children and their brains stop functioning afterward, they put energy helmets on the kids to generate energy from their minds to power the Institute. When a child dies, they throw their bodies into the incinerator and burn them. She shows them one of the bodies being thrown into the incinerator. He also learns that the Institute has been committing these crimes for 50 years without anyone exposing them. John is shocked, can't believe his eyes, and decides to go to his colleague in another department to ask for support because he only has 3 officers in his department, and attacking the Institute with that number is impossible. When Dror arrives at the department, John asks him to take his place until he returns, but Dror refuses and says he can't handle that responsibility. He keeps focusing on Luke, and it becomes clear that he knows him. Suddenly, he pulls out his gun and shoots John, killing him. He apologizes to Tim but says he has to do this and hands Luke over to the Institute. He forces Luke and Tim to handcuff themselves to a chair, then calls Trevor to tell him he's caught them and is waiting for backup. He goes back to take John's bag to hide it in the storage room, which makes Tim anxious because the flash drive is in John's pocket. Tim asks Luke to pull the desk pin toward them to unlock the cuffs. Luke tries to pull it, but suddenly stops because Dror sees them. Dror goes and locks all the windows to prevent anyone from coming in, so Luke takes advantage of his distraction and pulls the pin toward him. At that moment, Julia arrives at the department with her assistants, all dressed in federal police uniforms. They enter to take Tim and Luke, but are shocked to find they've escaped from the handcuffs and run away. Julia orders them to get the car ready to chase after them, as they surely haven't left the city yet. She asks Dror to come with her because he knows Tim's friends in the city. Tim and Luke go to Dobira's market to hide, but suddenly hear Julia's car. Dobira hides them in an underground storage room and tells them not to be afraid. When Julia asks Dobira if he's seen Tim, he replies that he was just there, bought some things, and he heard him say he was heading to Portland in a black Dodge car. Julia quickly leaves to catch up with Tim. Tim comes out of hiding and thanks Dobira for his help. Dobira assures him it's the least he can do after Tim saved his life from a bullet. He gives Tim a rifle and bullets to defend himself, which is the first time Tim has held a weapon since the incident with the child he killed himself. Tim and Luke move to escape the city before Julia catches up with them. At that time, Avery enters the test room. Daniel puts him inside the glass box and asks Tony to suck the air out of the box. Avery starts to suffocate and his nose bleeds. He becomes very angry and uses his mental power to blow up the box, shocking Daniel with his strength. Daniel is certain that Avery is the miracle child they've been searching for their whole lives. He decides to move Avery to the back section because he can generate enough energy to power the Institute forever. Tim goes to Wendy's house, shocks her with the truth that John is dead, and asks her to hide him. He tells her everything he learned about the Institute and what's happening inside. Wendy can't believe Dror was the one who killed John, but she trusts him and decides to help him hide at her house. Julia orders her team to continue chasing Tim on the road, while she and Dror go to Wendy's house to search for him. Whoever finds him first should contact the other. At the Institute, Avery is moved to the back section, seriously injured in the face, but he doesn't care and wants revenge on the Institute and its organizers. He's happy to see Kalisha and Nikki, but Kalisha has lost her speech and movement. He holds hands with her and Nikki and revives her mind so she can speak again. The 3 communicate telepathically. Avery tells them that Luke has escaped, he has collected all the pieces, and will show them his true power to destroy the Institute. Julia knocks on Wendy's door, introduces herself as federal police, and says she's looking for Tim because he killed his boss at the department. She notices Wendy is afraid someone will approach the storage room and asks Dror to open the door. Suddenly, Tim appears and threatens them with the rifle, making both Julia and Dror stand by the wall. He asks Wendy to take Dror's gun, but Dror grabs her and tries to strangle her. Wendy twists his arm, and Dror shoots Tim in the shoulder, so Tim shoots Dror and kills him. He threatens Julia, saying he'll kill her too, so she surrenders and lets Luke take her gun without resistance. She decides to tell them everything about the Institute and what they do. She reveals that there are many branches of the Institute around the world, and the precogs can see future events. They learned that Senator Ramsey would become Secretary of Defense in 9 years and convince the president to declare war on North Korea. The first missile would pass over Russia, which Russia would consider a threat and launch World War III. So the Institute carried out an assassination operation on Ramsey and crashed his plane. She admits the Institute carries out assassinations to prevent World War III, sacrificing groups of children over 50 years to save the world from destruction. Tim gets gets angry at her for deciding to control the world as they please. Meanwhile, Avery goes to the movie room and puts on the helmet to carry out an assassination operation himself. But it turns out he's planning to sabotage the assassination and start a coup against the Institute. He contacts Luke telepathically, guiding him to drive the car and save the woman with him. Suddenly, Avery grabs the hands of all the children in the room, and they all stand up at once. At that moment, one of the guards in the infirmary feels something strange around her and is shocked to see the children come back to life and their minds working again. They start removing the helmets from their heads. Tony gets angry and goes to Avery to electrocute him, but Nikki intervenes at the last moment, enters Tony's mind, and makes him swallow the stun gun while it's on, burning his throat with electricity. Nikki is very happy that they succeeded in their mission, got rid of Tony, and avenged themselves. Avery, Nikki, and Kalisha go to the infirmary and see the dead guard's body in a gruesome way. Suddenly, they see the rest of the children standing in the room, so they all move until they reach the tunnel that leads to the back section. At that moment, Trevor cuts off the electricity to the tunnel door and traps the children inside. He agrees with one of the guards to make toxic gas to spray in the air ducts and kill the children if they continue their escape plan. Luke decides to return to the Institute to contact Avery and help him escape. Tim calls Trevor and tells him that Julia and Luke are with him, and they're on their way to the Institute to meet him. He'll bring Luke to Trevor if he lets the children out of the tunnel and doesn't kill them. After a while, Tim arrives at the Institute and gets out of the car alone to meet Trevor. He threatens to hurt him unless Luke kills Julia before she gets out of the car. The boss is monitoring everything through the cameras, and it turns out Trevor had a plan to trick Tim. A group of guards attack the car and get everyone out, but are shocked to find Luke isn't in the car and realize he escaped into the Institute while they were distracted. Trevor orders the guards to find Luke quickly, and at that moment, Luke is climbing over the fence. The rusty one goes back inside the Institute again to help the rest of his friends escape from there. He reaches the tunnel, but the door is locked, so he communicates with Avery through his thoughts, and they unite together and communicate with the children in the other Institute to help them escape from this Institute. We see that there are many other children imprisoned in the Institute, and Luke is able to open the first door using his abilities. He quickly enters the tunnel and notices that the place has started to collapse, so he rushes to his friends, and together they combine their abilities and open the second door to escape. But Avery refuses to escape with them and tells them that he must stay here to maintain communication with the other institutes and destroy the institute they are in. Afterwards, Luke, Kalisha, Nikki, and George escape, and the whole institute is about to collapse on them. Julia is in her office, looking at a picture of herself with her father. She calls his nurse and tells her that she will disappear for a while, and if her father asks about her, she should play his birthday recording to distract him. Julia decides to escape from the place before she dies under the rubble as well. At that time, we see Trevor, and the ground splits beneath him. Trevor falls and dies. In front of the institute, Luke decides to destroy the whole place so that the institute disappears from existence. He communicates with Avery and the rest of the children from the institutes, lifts the institute building into the air, and slams it to the ground, causing the whole building to collapse. The boss sees everything on the surveillance cameras and calls an unknown person, asking him to bring a team to erase all traces of the institute from the place and burn all records or any evidence that proves anything was happening inside the institute. After that, he goes out to play with his grandchildren. We return to Luke, who asks Tim about his plan to return them to their families. Tim replies that he has planned everything, but Luke shocks him by saying he read his thoughts and knows he is lying to him. Tim asks him to get out of his head. At night, we learn that Julia is still alive. She stops a car on the road and asks the driver to take her to the city. When she gets in the car, she pulls out the flash drive that was with John's body. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video. Goodbye.